Hey, it's kind of late right now. There's not too much to do, so I figured right now would be a good time to speak and make a little video about some thoughts. Yeah, I mean, as of late, I've been thinking a lot about authenticity and trying to understand what it means to different people, because there are slight differences, just like with anything. Everybody has a different way of explaining things and understanding things and tailoring it to what it means to them. But I came across some cool articles about honesty versus authenticity, and I remember watching something about the difference between honesty and authenticity, and found it kind of interesting. So I guess I want to get your thoughts and opinions. Do you think there's a difference between being authentic and honest? So I think in this video they argued that the way honesty differs from authenticity is that authenticity is more of an all-encompassing, genuine, whole way of expressing oneself, regardless of the outcome of what other people might be saying. And yeah, basically what this person was saying was that honesty differs with authenticity, because when somebody is honest and they're expressing an honest opinion with another person, that individual that's expressing the honesty, whatever they may be saying, is hoping that in return they receive an honest behavior back to them, if that makes sense. That there's reciprocity between the two exchanges of honesty. And the way authenticity is quite different from honesty is that there's no expectation with the response or the comment or whatever it is that person one is saying. Kind of interesting, but that's, yeah, just another way of looking at it. I don't know if there's a big difference, really. But yeah. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Authenticity and how it ties in with fear, how it ties in with vulnerability, because they're all connected, obviously. And within vulnerability, you have to let go. You have to let go to attain a state in which you are comfortable with being vulnerable. However, I don't feel that vulnerability is too comfortable, because that's why it's so avoided, and that's why people don't expose themselves to showing what they should be showing, or what they want to be showing, but other circumstances get in the way, and usually self-imposed circumstances. It's interesting because we're taught at such an early age to be who we should be, and that we're different, we're unique, everybody's different, but we should embrace these differences. We should revel in the fact that everybody has unique qualities to them that make each other different, but within that difference, there's love, there's connection, and there's room to grow within that connection. But then, slowly you discover that all this programming that you've been taught, actually there's not a lot of programming with the uniqueness and being authentic. It kind of just gets eradicated once you start school or whatever developmental age. But it's just interesting that we're taught at an early age, but it's never followed through. And it's such a challenge that many people face, me included. Not just about being blunt, necessarily. I don't think honesty has to do with just being truthful in your word. I mean, obviously that's a huge defining factor with it, but just being honest or authentic, whatever you want to call it, you're allowing yourself to be exposed on every level, not just through verbal words and whatever. Your actions are cultivated with honesty and authenticity. You're everything, really. To be honest is to show your true self, to exercise a certain degree of fearlessness within yourself that allows you to kind of master any situation, because you're so in that core, that core of knowingness and authenticity. And I feel that the more you become in tune with that, the more comfortable it gets. Letting go of things and embracing vulnerability. So we're not taught to follow through on these things. I think people need to remember it and relearn how to reach that state. And it's like, why don't we become vulnerable? We're told that, we have to communicate our troubles and our weaknesses to release all the... Man, I'm lost for words. But this is me being honest with you. This is me, unedited, and I want to keep it this way for as long as I can. But we have to rediscover vulnerability in order to be authentic, because they work together, and you can't attain this authenticity fully if you don't embrace your shadow, and if you don't acknowledge that you have a dark side, with the light side, accompanied with the light side. And especially people with social anxiety or anxiety, depression, whatever you want to call it, it's like, okay, well, I have to be vulnerable. That's what I need to do in order to transcend this trouble that I'm feeling. But why in the world would I want to be vulnerable? You might say, well, fuck that, I don't want to be vulnerable at all. I'm already at the pits of that state of mind every waking hour. Experiencing more of this, you think that'll do any good? And with that mindset, you retreat back to the luxuries of your egoic safety net of a mind, and slowly avoidance plagues you. Negativity knocks on your front door, attempting to sell you, the latest goods, more things that will keep you convenient and locked up in your comfortable home. And then you become avoiding all and every valuable life lesson, because you're afraid of being vulnerable, because you're afraid of changing, you're afraid of acknowledging your darkness. You just keep repressing it and pressing down on all this energy, and you can feel it. You can feel when you know you should be telling the truth, when you know you should be living to your highest potential, but you're not. It's like living that way, not living to your highest potential, or living through the eyes of other people. You can feel that, whether you feel it in your chest, whether you feel it in your head, you just know. And a lot of that has to do with not being authentic and listening to yourself. So, we gotta first change our perception of what vulnerability is defined as, and not, the conventional dictionary definition that everybody knows. Because we've learned that the true meaning of vulnerability is quite different from what we're so used to hearing. It's a skewed idea that one is weak, pathetic, and disgraceful for having problems, for having dilemmas, for going through troubles, when in fact you're not powerless. It's anything but true. And I think many people are afraid of vulnerability so much, to the extent that they go out of their way, they go to great lengths to avoid anything at all, to show that they have it within themselves, that vulnerability. So, they they build this persona based off a fabrication and deceit, pretending to be something else other than offering this openness. And you know what's really strange? Well, I have notes here. I have a lot of notes. See, I'm just going to go off a bit, but the one thing that makes me feel secure, I guess, and safe within acknowledging vulnerability is through writing, and also through movement. And a lot of people will disagree, you know, like, oh, dancing does not make me feel whole, present, quite anxious. But, you know, I still get vulnerable, and especially with writing too, because, you know, if you're not keeping all your written work and your narratives and your stories to yourself, then you run the risk of exposing yourself to people. And it's just interesting because, like I said, we all yearn to be open. I think really what we all want out of life is to be happy, and obviously to attain that happiness we have to be open. And every single person, no matter how much they repress the fact that they're vulnerable and they have weaknesses, deep down inside we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be appreciated. And there's a paradox in that, because we're so closed off, yet we want to be open. And existence is futile, you know, but we spend so much time putting on like these layers, like these metaphorical layers of like skin to protect ourselves. Just keep, you know, putting more armor on us to hide the fact that we have any problems. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild that maybe not everybody, but it's wild that a lot of people do this. I guess I'm making this video for myself too, because, you know, I fall off track, and I sometimes forget that I shouldn't be ashamed of saying what I have to say and being raw. Being so unapologetically honest with who I am that it might make somebody else uncomfortable, but you know what? It shouldn't make me uncomfortable. And I don't know, every single person just wants to be heard and wants to be appreciated. And is it wrong to say that everybody does deserve that? Every single person, every fucking person, animal, thing, whatever, deserves an environment in which they can thrive. And how do you expect to thrive if you don't have those qualities, those elements of love and acceptance, and just to be listened to and to be able to express? I think every person deserves a right to be heard, to be seen, and to be appreciated no matter what. What did I write here? I guess it's all just about habit, and really understanding that it's not a shameful thing to feel. And that slowly but surely, when you let go of this idea that vulnerable is weakness, then you'll be able to understand what authenticity is. Look at yourself with gentle eyes, I would say. Eradicate the notion that weakness is bad, and that vulnerability equates weakness. Understand that this has led you here. So let's say you're not being honest and you've lied to others, don't carry that heavy guilt on your shoulders, but rather, I would say, accept things. Accept things for the way they are, yet commit to changing what you can change in this moment from now on. Do something different and always forgive yourself. If you're lying to others and that that poses as a problem, and you know very well that there's a problem in your life and it's reoccurring, you're holding yourself out of your own path and inflicting destruction on your own self, really. We have to build a new paradigm. Just a new foundation that says that vulnerability should not be removed. It's vital, and it's a part of ourselves. And if we want to deny that, we're denying a one fraction of ourselves amongst many other portions. And we must risk it all for whatever it is. Risk it all just to see the outcome, even if it scares the living shit out of you. You have to be honest. You have to express who you are. You have to be who you are. And you have to discover that. And it has to start now. It has to start somewhere. And why not now? Make it your muse. Be preoccupied with it. You notice in certain people that they don't let life live them. They're living life. And you'll notice in a lot of successful and happy people, they have certain qualities to them that's so magnetic. You're just naturally drawn to them. And I think a lot of it has to do with that. I think a lot of it is because they're so authentic and so centered, and they understand who they are. And by doing so, they're able to inspire other people. But not everybody's like that. Not everybody started out in that way. But I think also our highest self is composed of love and fearlessness. Fearlessness is our natural state. When we relax into our own experience, we begin to cultivate all the key elements of what our highest self needs. And our true highest being, soul, inner Buddha, whatever you want to call it, in its most raw state, some would say it's inherent goodness. You could argue that. I'm not saying it is for sure, because I don't know. But in this world, it's meant to be expressed alongside with negativity and confusion, ambiguous and lower level states of mind. And often we try to cast aside the lower level states of mind, and we try to repress the shadow and rid ourselves from it. Yet these two elements, if we can say two, if we can confidently say two, because who knows, there might be more, but for the sake of this video, we'll say two elements that work in tandem, duality. These sequence of events that happen are expressed through the workings in harmonious bonds of duality. However, I think a lot of people also view these two elements as very separate. And I remember watching a video that Alan Watts was talking about. One second. My throat is cracking up. Yeah, I was watching a video and Alan Watts was talking about a lot of stuff, and he touched on the illusion that we don't really understand duality as a union. And the secret is that we need to understand that they do work harmoniously, operating in a sort of dualistic dance for our human experience. I believe a lot of us have fallen into the habit of working very hard to dismiss negative qualities of ourselves. We work so hard to tuck away our shadow self. And in this action, we create a very neglectful relationship with it. Because when we're doing this, we lock our deep, dark secrets away. And we're locking these deep, dark secrets away in the vaults of our unconscious mind. And, you know, in doing so, we just cross our fingers in hopes that nothing will spill out, nothing will be revealed, and nothing will make its way into reality. Because if somebody knows something about us that will make us feel blamed or shamed or guilt, then how's that person going to think about us? And it all just goes back to getting comfortable with being who you are, being authentic, testing it out, trying it out, getting familiar with what it feels like to be exposed. And I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. That's been my main focus for the past few years. And in my interactions with other people, I try to be an example of that in the best way possible that I can do. Because for me, I really value that in relationships with other people. And obviously within myself, I really want to connect with people on a deeper level. And a lot of people want to hide away their weaknesses, if you even want to call it that. I think weakness is a bad word. I think it shouldn't be called weak, because within that it's very powerful. But a lot of people want to hide that. And I'm not about hiding that. And I don't want to see somebody hiding that. You know, you can kind of sense, if you know somebody for a long time, you can kind of sense what they're hiding, that they might not be saying something to you, whether it's a friend going through something difficult and they want to close up because they're so used to keeping inside, or whatever that situation may be. And I'll be honest, I think a big thing for me that I'm not used to yet is that I expect like instant reciprocation when I'm being honest. But everybody moves at a different pace. And it's important to be an example, yes, but also be understanding and accepting about where they are in that exact moment in time. Just knowing that because everything is fleeting in nature, they will progress. So you can just be an example. And that's a big thing for me. I try not to push people. But sometimes I get lost and I forget that everybody moves at their own pace and that they might not want to open up at that point in time. But going back to all of that with the repression and, you know, the dismissal, is that a word? Dismissive? Okay, anyways, when people dismiss their shadow self, you know, it's funny because it does work for a very short time. Repression is a clever and tactful strategy. However, don't be surprised one day when this mechanism no longer holds its own, you know? It can only work for so long before it becomes so highlighted and big and it starts growing and you can't bottle things down anymore. You can't hide from everybody, because eventually somebody's going to demand that from you. They're going to say, well, who are you? And you can't answer that because you haven't explored it and because you've been hiding from it. Wow, there's a lot of notes here. Yeah. I mean, you could look into a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of great people on YouTube right now making videos about authenticity and vulnerability, I've been noticing, and wow, such great information, such motivating and inspiring words. And I think it's really important to just acknowledge that a lot of people go through this. I think a huge majority of people don't understand themselves right now because of many things, really. I mean, why do we view vulnerability in this way of being? You know, maybe when we were younger, parents ignored our cries, and we were taught at a really young age that it's wrong and that we must be tough. We must build up this tough demeanor in order to get through in life, which makes sense because it is a very competitive world. However, it's the dismissing of another fraction of yourself that makes up the whole. And you don't always have to convey a happy, positive, strong demeanor at all times. That's a big thing I think a lot of people make the mistake of doing, is that I'm a big pusher for positivity. I think you can get through so many things. You can move mountains. You can create great strides in your life by being positive. But let's not forget that when you do feel negative, you shouldn't be trying so hard to push out of that negative state of mind, because then there's more resistance building up, and within that resistance, you're not accepting the non-peaceful state. And when you're not accepting the non-peaceful state, there's more struggle, there's more pressure. As soon as you cultivate acceptance in that moment that you are feeling negative, and it doesn't really feel too harmonious, it is. It's just all about being patient and breathing and saying, okay, well, this is going to pass. This too shall pass. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. I have a lot to say sometimes. That's also another big thing why I'm doing this channel, because I have a lot to say, and my family, they do their best at understanding what I'm interested in and what I want to speak about, but there's only so much that they want to understand, and that's okay. So I like speaking here because it gives me, it's an outlet for whatever I want to say. It allows me to progress. It allows me to get closer to where I want to be. But yeah, I want to ask you guys, what are you afraid of? What is it about being vulnerable that is terrifying for you? And what would you say is one of the greatest things you can be doing for yourself right now to move past that, or to dive into it? Really, I think you must dive into it to understand it and to extinguish it. Although it has its purpose, it's there for your highest good. What do you guys do? What do you guys do to understand more about yourself through exploring what makes you vulnerable, that leads to a deeper level of authenticity within yourself? I'll, I guess, leave you with something I saw, something I read rather. I read this. Where is this? I found this on some website. I don't remember which one. It's not really important. But it's by a man named Matt Kahn. Matt Kahn, yeah. And, yeah, hold on a sec. Oh man, my throat is dry. Okay. And it applies to what I've been saying. But obviously he's more of a wordsmith, so I will let him do the talking. One of the most commonly overlooked spiritual practices is daring to be completely honest with everyone you encounter. Some may say others cannot handle the grace of honesty, but true honesty is not a strategy or weapon of any kind. It is a willingness to be open and absolutely transparent in sharing how any moment feels in your heart. It has nothing to do with confrontation, accusation, or any form of blame. True honesty is a willingness to stand completely exposed, allowing the world to do what it may and say what it will, only so you know who you are, beyond all ideas. Feelings such as shame, guilt, doubt, envy, anger, and resentment arise whenever we have prevented ourselves from speaking our deepest truth, or withheld a depth of sincerity from being shared with others. With nothing to withhold or hide, the truth is spoken freely, at no one's expense. The truth contains no form of blame or judgment. Instead, it celebrates how intimately we know ourselves by how open and available you're willing to be. Knowing this, life's deepest wisdom always remains the same. You'll feel better when you're completely and totally honest. This is why honesty is the ultimate healing modality. Honesty is the absence of avoidance, no matter what situation appears. Inevitably, life transforms when the value of honesty is no longer dominated by an attachment to convenience or the threat of rejection. When honesty is regarded as your highest value and acted upon with kindness and compassion in every personal encounter, you invite the precision of life's inherent perfection into all areas of life. In doing so, every relationship and circumstance transforms at the rate in which true sincerity of heart leads the way. This reveals life's natural way of being, which cannot be known on the deepest level until you're completely honest. Beautiful, and so very true. Yeah, and I think people who write like that, people just who write in general to get an idea across, are exposing that level in them of vulnerability. And poetry as well. Poetry is huge, and I love poetry, and people who do poetry are amazing. And it doesn't have to rhyme, it can be anything. Poetry can be whatever you choose it to be. But truth, I would say, is also the best form of poetry. When we speak our truth, it's poetic in many ways. That's it. I've been talking for a little while, longer than I usually do. That's good. It's good to get things off your chest, right? Okay, well, I think I'm going to go hit the hay. Thank you for watching, if you actually stuck through with this whole video. I appreciate it, and yeah, feel free to comment, feel free to do whatever. I love interacting with you people. It's cool. It's cool that this YouTube thing is awesome. It's just awesome. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying now. This is getting weird, so bye!